The diplomatic ship Terra Nova moved slowly through space toward the massive station ahead. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood at the main window, watching the Galactic Council headquarters grow larger with each passing minute. The station was huge, bigger than any human city. It gleamed with silver metal and strange lights that pulsed in colors Jake had never seen before. "First time seeing it in person?" asked Amy Rodriguez, walking up beside him. She was the team's cultural expert, the person who knew the most about alien customs and languages. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat style, and she carried a thick folder full of notes about each alien species they would meet. "Yes," Jake replied. "Pictures don't do it justice. Hard to believe we're really here." Behind them, Captain Ben. Walsh checked his sidearm one more time. He was their military escort, a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. "Remember, sir, we're guests here. If things go wrong, we follow their rules until we can get back to the ship." Jake nodded. 20 years of preparation had led to this moment. 20 years since humans first learned they were not alone in the universe. 20 years of watching alien ships from a distance, learning their languages, and trying to understand their ways. Now humanity was finally ready to ask for a seat. At the big table, the Terra Nova docked with a soft bump. Jake straightened his formal uniform and picked up his briefcase. Inside were documents that represented all of human civilization. Population numbers, resource reports, technology samples, and cultural information. Everything the Galactic Council would need to judge whether humanity deserved to join them. The airlock opened with a hiss. 3 aliens waited on the other side. The first was tall and thin with blue skin and forearms. Its eyes were large and black, and it wore robes covered in silver symbols. This was a Zephyrian, one of the oldest species in the Council. "Greetings, humans," the Zephyrian said in perfect English. Its voice was high and musical. "I am Ambassador Kethval. The Council is ready to see you." Jake stepped forward and gave a small bow, the way Amy had taught him. "Thank you, Ambassador. I am Jake Morrison, representing Earth and all human colonies. This is Amy Rodriguez and Captain Walsh." The Zephyrian looked them up and down like someone examining insects. "Follow me. Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless spoken to. The Council has little time for this meeting." They walked through corridors that curved in impossible ways. The walls showed moving pictures of distant stars and alien worlds. Other beings passed them in the halls, creatures with too many legs, others that floated without touching the ground, and some that Jake could not even describe. The council chamber was enormous. 12 raised platforms surrounded a small area. In the center, each platform held representatives from different alien species. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Jake had to force himself not to stare. At the highest platform sat High Chancellor Dixvara, leader of the Zephyrian hegemony. Next to her was Prime Coordinator Velthanis of the Vorthan Collective, a gray creature with tentacles instead of arms. Their eyes focused on Jake with what looked like boredom mixed with annoyance. "So," Dixvara said, her voice echoing through the chamber, "these are the newcomers, the species that learned to travel between stars only decades ago." Jake walked to the center of the chamber. Amy and Ben stayed close behind him. He could feel the weight of thousands of alien eyes watching his every move. "Honored council members," Jake began, using the formal greeting Amy had practiced with him hundreds of times. "I come representing humanity with hope for friendship and cooperation between our peoples." Several aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Velthanis spoke next, his tentacles moving as he talked. "Friendship? Cooperation? You have nothing to offer us, young species. You barely understand the basics of galactic civilization." Jake kept his voice calm and respectful. "We offer our perspective, our innovations, and our desire to contribute to galactic peace. Humanity has much to learn, but we also have much to give. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a small device. This is a quantum processor of human design. It can solve complex problems faster than any computer in council space. We freely offer this technology as a sign of our good intentions. The aliens murmured among themselves. Some seemed interested, but Jake could see doubt in their faces. Vexvara raised one of her 4 hands for silence. "Your toys are amusing," she said, "but the council has decided how to handle your species. We offer you protection under the status of junior species. You will be guided by wiser civilizations until you prove worthy of independence." Jake felt his heart sink. This was exactly what Earth's leaders had feared. With respect, Chancellor, humanity seeks equal membership in the Council. We govern ourselves and wish to continue doing so. The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Valthinus slammed his tentacles on his platform. "Arrogant creatures. You think you can demand equality with species that mastered space travel when your kind still lived in caves." Amy stepped closer to Jake and whispered urgently, "Sir, we should consider their offer. We can negotiate better terms later." But Jake knew what his orders were. Earth had been clear: equality or nothing. They would not trade their freedom for alien protection, no matter how advanced these species claimed to be. "We appreciate the Council's offer," Jake said loudly, his voice carrying across the chamber. "But humanity will govern itself. We seek partnership with the Council as equals, not as subjects under alien rule." The silence that followed was deafening. Jake could see rage building in the aliens' faces. Vexvara stood up to her full height, towering over the chamber. "Then you have made your choice," she said coldly. "This meeting is over." As Jake and his team were escorted from the chamber, he could not shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. The way the aliens looked at them had changed from boredom to something much more dangerous. Behind them, the council began to speak in hushed, angry voices about the arrogant humans who dared to demand equal treatment. Jake Morrison and his team sat in a small waiting room near the council chamber. The walls were bare metal, and the only furniture was 3 simple chairs. A single alien guard stood by the door, its weapon clearly visible. "How long have we been here?" Amy asked, checking her watch for the 10th time. 3 hours, Ben replied. He stood near the door, watching the guard carefully. Something felt wrong about this whole situation. In all his years as a soldier, he had learned to trust his instincts when they screamed danger. Amy pulled out her communication device. "I'm going to send an update to Earth. They need to know the Council rejected our proposal." The guard suddenly spoke. "No communications allowed. Council orders." Ben stepped forward. "We have diplomatic immunity. The lady has the right to contact her government." The guard raised its weapon slightly. "No communications. Wait for Council decision." Meanwhile, in the Council chamber, the 12 species were deep in heated discussion. High Chancellor Vexvara paced back and forth on her platform, her 4 arms moving as she spoke. "These humans are dangerous," she said to the other Council members. "They refuse to accept their proper place. If we allow this, other young species will follow their example." Prime Coordinator Valthinus agreed, his tentacles writhing with anger. "They show no respect for our authority. For thousands of years, new species have accepted junior status. It is the natural order." A representative from the Corvan Empire, a creature that looked like a giant insect, clicked its mandibles. "Perhaps we should simply deny them any status at all. Send them back to their little corner of space." "No," Vexvara said firmly. "That would show weakness. Other species would think they can challenge the Council without consequences. We must make an example." The discussion continued for hours. Some species wanted to give humans one more chance to accept junior status. Others argued for stronger action. But Thexvara and Velthinus slowly convinced the majority that humanity's defiance threatened the entire council system. Finally, they reached a decision. The humans had committed the crime of galactic disruption by refusing to accept council authority. The penalty would be severe. Back in the waiting room, Jake noticed the guard speaking into a small device. Moments later, 2 more guards entered. All 3 carried weapons that hummed with dangerous energy. "Ambassador Morrison," the first guard said, "the council will see you now for the final ceremony." Amy looked confused. "Final ceremony? What does that mean?" "Come," the guard replied, ignoring her question. They were escorted back to the council chamber, but this time the atmosphere was different. The aliens sat perfectly still, their faces cold and hard. Additional guards lined the walls, all with weapons ready. Thexvara stood as the humans entered. "Ambassador Morrison, you and your delegation have been found guilty of galactic disruption and species arrogance. These crimes threaten the peace and order of council space." Jake felt his blood run cold. "Chancellor, we are diplomatic representatives. We have immunity under galactic law. We came here in peace." "Your immunity is revoked," Velthinus announced. "The council has voted. The sentence is death." Amy stepped forward, her voice shaking but determined. "You cannot do this. We are diplomats. This violates every law of civilized space." Ben moved to shield Jake and Amy, his hand moving toward his sidearm. But before he could draw it, one of the guards fired a warning shot that missed his head by inches. "Do not resist," Thexvara commanded. "Your deaths will serve as a message to any species that thinks it can challenge council authority." The guards forced the 3 humans to their knees in the center of the chamber. Velthinus raised a strange weapon that glowed with blue energy. "Molecular disruptors," he said with satisfaction. "You will simply cease to exist." Amy was crying now, but she kept her head high. "Earth will know what you did here. They will remember. Earth will learn its place," Thexvara replied coldly, "as will every other young species watching." The weapons fired simultaneously. Jake Morrison and his team simply vanished, their molecules scattered into nothing. The council chamber fell silent. 50 light years away, Lisa Park sat in front of a wall of monitors at the Seoul Defense Network headquarters. She was an intelligence analyst, one of dozens who monitored alien communications around the clock. Most days, she listened to boring trade discussions and shipping schedules. Today was different. Her monitoring equipment had picked up the council's communications during their deliberation. She listened in growing horror as the aliens discussed executing the human delegation. When the final transmission came through confirming the deaths, Lisa's hands shook as she reached for her emergency communicator. "Priority Alpha," she said. "Into the device. This is Lisa Park. I need to speak to the president immediately. Ambassador Morrison and his team are dead. The aliens killed them." Within minutes, the emergency alert reached President Ryan Carter in his office. He read the report 3 times before the words really sank in. Then he called his top advisors. Defense Secretary Nicole Hayes arrived first, her face pale after reading the intelligence report. "Sir, this changes everything. They murdered our diplomats in cold blood." Fleet Admiral Chris Sullivan entered moments later, still wearing his exercise clothes. He had been pulled out of his morning workout for the emergency meeting. "How many people know about this?" "Just us and the intelligence team," Carter replied. "But we can't keep it secret long. The families will need to be notified." Nicole slammed her hand on the president's desk. "They executed Jake Morrison, a man who went there in peace, offering friendship and cooperation." Admiral Sullivan studied the report carefully. "Mr. President, the Council just declared war on humanity." They may not realize it yet, but that's what this is. Carter felt a cold rage building inside him. He had known Jake Morrison personally. The man had 3 children and a wife waiting for him back on Earth. He had volunteered for this mission because he believed in peace between species. "How long would it take to mobilize our forces?" Carter asked. Sullivan's eyes hardened. "For a defensive action? 2 weeks. For what you're really asking about, 6 months of preparation. Maybe less if we skip some of the safety protocols." "They think we're weak," Nicole said quietly. "They think we'll accept this and beg for mercy." Carter stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see normal people going about their daily lives, completely unaware that everything had just changed. Soon, they would learn that humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and that their first contact had ended in murder. "They're wrong," he said finally. "Schedule a joint session of Congress. Alert all colony governors. And Chris?" "Yes, sir?" "Begin. Mobilization immediately. If the Galactic Council wants to teach humanity a lesson, we'll teach them one instead." The 3 leaders looked at each other, understanding passing between them without words. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had killed humans and expected submission. Instead, they had just started a war. The emergency meeting room in the White House was packed with humanity's top leaders. President Carter sat at the head of a long table, his face grim as he looked at the reports spread before him. The news of Jake Morrison's execution had been kept secret for now, but soon the whole world would know. Admiral Chris Sullivan stood at a large screen showing star maps of known space. The red areas marked Galactic Council territory. It covered thousands of systems, stretching across a huge section of the galaxy. The small blue dots showed human colonies, 50 systems that looked tiny compared to the alien empire. "The numbers are not good, Mr. President," Sullivan said honestly. "The Council controls over 3,000 systems. Their combined fleets have millions of ships. We have maybe 10,000 warships total, and most of those are patrol boats and escorts." "Defense." Secretary Nicole Hayes leaned forward. "What about their technology? How do we compare?" "In most areas, they're ahead of us," Sullivan admitted. "Their energy shields are stronger. Their weapons have longer range. Their ships are faster in normal space." President Carter felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. How could humanity fight such overwhelming odds? But then he remembered Jake Morrison's face, the man's dedication to peace, and his cold anger returned. "There has to be something," Carter said. "Some advantage we have that they don't know about." Dr. Ashley Chun, the chief technology officer, cleared her throat. She was a small woman with graying hair, but her eyes held secrets that could change the war. "Actually, Mr. President, there are several things the aliens don't know about us." She activated her own display, showing technical diagrams that made little sense to most people in the room. "The Council has been watching us for 20 years, but they've only seen what we wanted them to see. We've kept our most advanced research completely hidden." "What kind of research?" Nicole asked. Ashley smiled for the first time since the meeting began. "Quantum cascade weapons, for one. They can tear apart alien ship hulls at the molecular level. Relativistic kinetic platforms that can destroy planets from across a solar system. And our crown jewel, artificial micro-black holes." The room fell. Silent, Admiral Sullivan stared at the scientist. "You can create black holes?" "Small ones," Ashley confirmed. "Controlled, temporary, but incredibly destructive. We can make them appear anywhere we want, inside an enemy ship, next to a space station, even inside a planet's core." Carter leaned back in his chair. "Why wasn't I told about these weapons before?" "Because we hoped we'd never need them," Ashley replied. "These aren't defensive weapons, Mr. President. They're planet killers. city destroyers. Once we use them, there's no going back. Nicole spoke quietly. They executed our diplomats in cold blood. They think we're weak animals who will accept any treatment. Maybe it's time to show them what humans can really do. Over the next few days, orders went out to every human colony in space. The mobilization was unlike anything in human history. Every shipyard from Earth to the outer rim began working around the clock. Civilian ships were converted into military vessels. Mining equipment became weapons. Research stations turned their attention to instruments of war. On Mars, Colonel Sam Rodriguez led training exercises for the new colonial militias. Men and women who had been farmers and miners a week ago were learning to fight alien invaders. The enemy thinks we're soft, he told his recruits. They think because we prefer peace, we don't know how to make war. Let's prove them wrong. In the asteroid belt, Agent Danny Foster prepared for the most dangerous mission of his career. He would take a small, fast ship deep into Council space to gather intelligence on alien military positions. It was almost certainly a suicide mission, but the information could save millions of human lives. Remember, his handler told him before, launch. We need locations of their main fleet bases, government centers, and industrial worlds. Don't try to be a hero. Get the information and get out. Danny nodded grimly. And if I get caught, you know nothing. You're just a lost trader who got turned around. But don't let them take you alive if you can help it. The hidden research facilities on Europa worked frantically to weaponize their most secret projects. Dr. Ashley Chun moved between labs, checking progress on dozens of experimental weapons. The micro-black hole project was almost ready for field testing. How many can we deploy? Asked the lead researcher, Dr. Kevin Park. As many as we need, Ashley replied coldly. The Council wants to teach us a lesson about respect. We'll teach them one about consequences. Throughout human space, the same conversation was happening in a dozen languages on 50 different worlds. Families said goodbye to sons and daughters, joining the military. Factories retooled to build weapons instead of consumer goods. Scientists worked without sleep to turn peaceful technology into instruments of war. On the agricultural world of New California, Governor Lisa Martinez addressed her colonists via broadcast. The aliens think we're just farmers and miners out here. They don't know that farmers know how to work hard and miners know how to break things. We'll show them what humans can do when they threaten our families. President Carter received reports from across human space. The response was overwhelming. Every colony wanted to contribute. Every family wanted to help. Veterans came out of retirement to train new soldiers. Corporations donated their entire production to the war effort. Admiral Sullivan coordinated the massive undertaking from his headquarters. Ships that had never been designed for combat were fitted with the new quantum weapons. Patrol boats became deadly missile platforms. Even cargo haulers were turned into carriers for the experimental black hole devices. How long until we're ready? Carter asked during one of their daily briefings. 3 more months for full deployment, Sullivan replied. But we could begin operations in 6 weeks if necessary. Nicole looked at the intelligence reports from Danny Foster and other agents. The Council isn't expecting any response. They think killing our diplomats ended the problem. They have no idea what's coming. Dr. Chun entered the room carrying a small device no bigger than a coffee cup. The first production model, she announced. A controlled micro-black hole generator. This one unit can destroy a space station or cripple a capital ship. Carter stared at the innocent-looking device. Such a small thing to hold so much destructive power. How many can you build? Thousands, Ashley replied. And each one represents the death of everyone who thought Jake Morrison's murder would go unpunished. The president stood and walked to the window. Outside, He could see construction crews working on new defense installations. The whole planet was preparing for war. In a few months, humanity would launch the largest military operation in their history. The Council wanted to send a message. He said quietly, they wanted other species to see what happens when you challenge their authority. Fine, we'll send a message too. When we're done, every species in the galaxy will know what happens when you murder human diplomats. Behind him, the final preparations for humanity's revenge continued. The aliens had made their choice when they executed Jake Morrison. Now they would learn that humanity's capacity for violence matched their capacity for peace. The galaxy was about to discover why you should never corner a species that had evolved as persistence hunters. Admiral Kate Morrison stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Human Vengeance, staring at the view screen that showed the Galactic Council headquarters station. It was the same station where her brother Jake had been murdered 6 months ago. Today, she would make sure it never murdered anyone again. All strike fleets report ready, her communications officer announced. Operation Judgment Day is a go. Kate looked at the small device in her hand, one of Dr. Chun's micro-black hole generators. Such a tiny thing to end an empire with. Signal all fleets. Begin the erasure. Across 12 different star systems, human warships dropped out of hyperspace. Simultaneously, the aliens had no warning. Their sensors, designed to detect normal ship signatures, completely missed the new human stealth technology. By the time they realized what was happening, it was far too late. At Nexus Prime, at Council headquarters, Kate's fleet emerged from hyperspace just outside the massive station's defensive perimeter. Hundreds of alien ships rushed to intercept them, but they had never faced weapons like these before. Fire quantum cascades, Kate ordered calmly. Beams of pure energy struck the alien ships and simply tore them apart at the molecular level. Shields that had protected the Council for thousands of years collapsed in seconds. Ships that had seemed invincible crumbled like paper in a fire. High Chancellor Thexvara watched in horror from the station's command center as her fleet was destroyed. "What are those weapons?" she screamed at her tactical officers. "Our shields should stop anything. Unknown technology," came the terrified reply. "Our systems can't even identify the energy signature." On the Human Vengeance, Kate watched the alien fleet die. There was no satisfaction in her face, only cold determination. Deploy the black hole device. Target the station's core. The tiny generator fired its payload directly into the heart of the massive station. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself began to bend and twist around the station. The artificial black hole, no bigger than a marble, but the gravitational pull of a small star, began eating the station from the inside out. Thexvara had just enough time to understand what was happening before she and the entire Council leadership were pulled into the crushing darkness. The station that had ruled the galaxy for millennia simply ceased to exist, taking with it every trace of the aliens who had ordered Jake Morrison's death. Meanwhile, across Council space, similar scenes played out. Captain Tyler Brooks led the assault on the Vorthan Collective's industrial worlds. His ships appeared without warning above the massive shipyards that had built the Council's fleets for generations. "Look at all those pretty factories," Tyler said to his crew. "Be a shame if something happened to them." The relativistic kinetic platforms fired their payloads. Chunks of metal accelerated to nearly the speed of light. When they hit the alien shipyards, the explosions were visible from orbit. Entire continents disappeared in flashes of nuclear fire. The Vorthan's ability to build new ships died in minutes. Prime Coordinator Velthanis watched his civilization's industrial heart burn. From his command ship, "How is this possible?" he whispered. They were primitives. They had barely learned space travel. His tactical officer's tentacles shook with fear. Sir, we're receiving reports from across our territory. Every major installation is under attack. The humans are everywhere at once. Commander Kelly Phillips hunted the remnants of the Council's fleet through the outer systems. Her fast attack ships used hit-and-run tactics, peering from hyperspace to destroy fleeing alien vessels before vanishing again. No Council ship was safe anywhere in their former territory. Remember, she told her pilots over the radio, these are the same aliens who applauded when they murdered our ambassador. Show them the same mercy they showed Jake Morrison. The answer was always the same: none at all. On the Zephyrian homeworld, orbital bombardment platforms appeared in the sky like metal gods of war. The beautiful cities that had stood for 10,000 years burned under quantum fire. The species that had led the Council for so long found their world reduced to ash and radioactive glass. The few surviving Zephyrian leaders huddled in deep bunkers, listening to reports of their empire's destruction. Send a surrender message, one of them begged. Maybe the humans will show mercy. To who? Another replied bitterly. There's no one left to surrender to. They're not taking prisoners or accepting surrenders. They're erasing us completely. Agent Danny Foster, still deep in Council space, watched alien refugee ships fleeing in all directions. His mission had changed from intelligence gathering to damage assessment. The results were beyond anyone's wildest expectations. Control, this is Foster, he reported back to Earth. The Council is finished. I repeat, the Galactic Council no longer exists as a functioning government. Their military is destroyed, their leadership is dead, and their infrastructure is gone. The response from Earth was immediate. Confirmed, Foster. Continue monitoring and report any attempts at reorganization. But there would be no reorganization. In 6 months of systematic destruction, humanity had reduced 12 ancient civilizations to scattered groups of refugees hiding on backwater worlds. The great space empires that had ruled the galaxy were now reduced to whatever ships had managed to escape the initial attacks. Dr. Ashley Chun monitored the campaign from her laboratory on Europa. The micro-black hole devices had performed even better than expected. Entire star systems under Council control were now empty of any significant military presence. How many devices have we deployed? Asked her assistant. Over 2,000, Ashley replied, checking her records. Each one targeted at a specific military installation, government center, or industrial complex. The Council's ability to wage war has been completely eliminated. President Carter received hourly updates on the campaign's progress. The systematic destruction was proceeding exactly as planned. Every major Council asset had been identified and destroyed. Every leadership figure who had voted for Jake Morrison's execution was confirmed dead. Sir, Admiral Sullivan reported during one briefing, we've achieved total strategic victory. Council space is now under human control. Their fleets are destroyed. Their governments are gone, and their industrial capacity is zero. Nicole Hayes studied the final reports. What about civilian populations? We've avoided targeting civilian areas unless they were directly involved in military production, Sullivan confirmed. But the message is clear. Any species that threatens humanity will face complete destruction of their ability to make war. The campaign that had started with Operation Judgment, they ended 6 months later with the complete erasure of the Galactic Council as a political and military force. Where once 12 proud species had ruled thousands of worlds, now only scattered survivors remained, reduced to pre-spaceflight technology on whatever planets the humans had allowed them to keep. Admiral Kate Morrison stood once again on her bridge, but now she looked out at empty space where the Council headquarters had once been. Her brother's murder had been avenged, but the cost in alien lives had been enormous. Ma'am, her communications officer reported, we're receiving surrender. Requests from 17 different species. They're asking for terms. Kate considered this. The aliens who had once looked down on humanity as primitive newcomers were now begging for mercy from the species they had tried to dominate. Tell them to wait, she replied. Earth will decide what happens to them now. They had their chance to treat us as equals. They chose to murder our diplomats instead. The Galactic Council was dead. In its place, humanity now held the power to decide the fate of entire civilizations. The species that had executed Jake Morrison had learned, too, late that humans were not the weak primitives they had believed. The galaxy would never make that mistake again. President Carter stood before the cameras in the White House press room, but his words would reach far beyond Earth. The broadcast was going out across the entire galaxy, transmitted on every frequency the aliens used. Every surviving member of the former Council species would hear this message. 6 months ago, Carter began, his voice calm but firm, humanity sent diplomats to the Galactic Council seeking friendship and peaceful cooperation. Ambassador Jake Morrison and his team went in good faith, offering our hand in partnership with the species of this galaxy. He paused, letting his words sink in across thousands of worlds where alien survivors huddled around communication devices. Council's response was to execute our diplomats in cold blood. They believed this would teach humanity to accept a lesser status in galactic affairs. They thought we would submit to their authority out of fear. Carter's expression hardened. They were wrong. We do not submit to murderers. We do not accept the authority of those who kill diplomats. And we do not forgive the execution of innocent people who came seeking peace. On distant alien worlds, former council members watched their screens with growing dread. They had seen the reports of humanity's campaign. They knew their mighty civilizations had been reduced to scattered refugees in a matter of months. The Galactic Council is dead, Carter continued. Its leadership has been eliminated. Its military forces have been destroyed. Its ability to threaten any species has been permanently removed. This is the price of murdering human diplomats. Admiral Sullivan monitored alien communications from his command center. Across former Council space, he could see the terror in intercepted messages. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were now afraid of a race they had dismissed as primitives just months before. Deploy patrol fleets to sectors 7 through 15, he ordered his staff. I want human ships visible in every system that used to belong to the Council. Let them see who's in charge now. The patrol ships were not just symbols. Each carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. The aliens who saw them knew that humanity now held absolute power over what had once been Council territory. Dr. Ashley Chun continued her work, but now her research focused on defensive systems rather than weapons of mass destruction. We've proven our point, she told her team. Now we need to make sure no one can threaten human space again. Her new projects included early warning networks that could detect hostile fleet movements from hundreds of light years away. If any species ever tried to attack humanity again, they would face the same fate as the Council. Meanwhile, Ambassador Mary Connor had taken over Jake Morrison's mission, but under very different circumstances. Instead of begging for acceptance, she now met with neutral alien species who had stayed out of the conflict with the Council. Humanity seeks peaceful relations with all species who respect our sovereignty, she told a gathering of alien ambassadors on the neutral world of Haven Station. We offer trade, cooperation, and mutual defense agreements to any civilization that approaches us as equals. The aliens listened carefully. They had seen what happened to those who treated humans as inferiors. These species wanted very much to be on humanity's good side. The Altarian Trade Federation was the first to sign a formal alliance. Their representative, a tall being with golden skin, spoke for many when he said, "The Altarian people have always believed in peaceful coexistence. We welcome humanity as partners in galactic civilization." Other species quickly followed. The crystal beings of Andromeda offered exclusive mining rights to rare elements. The peaceful Commonwealth of Rigel proposed joint exploration missions to uncharted space. Everyone wanted to be humanity's friend now, but some former council species still existed as refugees, and they needed to be dealt with. President Carter made his policy clear in another broadcast aimed specifically at them. To the survivors of the former council species, he said, humanity does not seek your complete destruction. You will be allowed to rebuild your civilizations. Under human oversight, you will be given worlds to live on and the basic resources needed for survival. He leaned forward, his voice becoming harder. But you will never again possess the ability to threaten other species. Your military forces will remain limited to system defense only. Your governments will operate under human supervision. And if any of you ever again raise a hand against human diplomats or civilians, you will face the same fate as your former leaders. The message was received with relief by most alien survivors. They had expected complete extermination. The chance to rebuild, even under human control, was more mercy than they had dared hope for. Colonel Sam Rodriguez oversaw the establishment of human bases throughout former council space. His troops were welcomed as liberators by many species who had been oppressed under council rule. The galaxy was learning that human protection was far preferable to council domination. On Earth, a massive memorial was built to honor Jake Morrison and his diplomatic team. The inscription read simply, "They went in peace and died for truth. Their sacrifice lit the fire that freed the galaxy." Jake's wife and children attended the dedication ceremony. President Carter spoke to them personally. "Your husband's death was not in vain," he told them. "Because of his sacrifice, no human diplomat will ever again face such a fate." Admiral Kate Morrison received a new assignment as the first governor of liberated space. Her job was to oversee the reconstruction of former council territory under human guidance. It was fitting that Jake's sister would help build the peaceful galaxy he had died trying to create. The transformation was remarkable. Within a year of the council's destruction, trade was flowing freely between dozens of species. Scientific cooperation replaced military competition. The galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in thousands of years, but everyone understood the foundation of this peace. Ambassador Connor concluded her first major diplomatic conference with words that would be repeated across the galaxy for generations to come. "Humanity prefers friendship to conflict," she told the assembled alien diplomats. "We seek cooperation rather than domination. We offer our hand in partnership to all who will take it. But never forget, we have also proven what happens to those who mistake our desire for peace as weakness." She gestured to the window, where human patrol ships could be seen passing by the station. "We are the species that turned the mighty Galactic Council into scattered refugees in 6 months. We are the people who answered the murder of our diplomats by erasing an entire empire. Remember this when you deal with us." The aliens nodded solemnly. They would remember. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of underestimating humanity. In the depths of space, former council survivors told their children stories of the terrible war they had brought upon themselves. They spoke of the species that had seemed weak but proved to be the strongest of all. And in those stories, they always ended with the same warning: never harm a human diplomat. Never threaten the children of Earth, for they are slow to anger, but when roused, they will erase you from existence itself. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity's place as the dominant power was secured, not just by their weapons, but by the memory of what they had done to those who had murdered Jake Morrison. Peace reigned, built on the foundation of absolute strength and the promise of terrible vengeance for those who would break it.